Hello, everyone. I am here to give you guys a bit of a overview, so to speak, of the biblical series from Francine Rivers, The Lineage of Grace and the Sons of Encouragement. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil this. There's no spoilers in this video. However, maybe you're wondering if, should I read one or both of these books? I'm going to go ahead and give you guys an idea of what to expect from these books and if you should read it or not. So I will say for me, I never read Christian fiction until I read this book. This was the first one that I read. I always thought that whenever anyone tries to take the Bible and create a story, that it would be cheesy, corny, like, oh, they're going to mess it up. It's not going to be good. But I was very surprised with Francine Rivers. She takes the story from the Bible, but she also does research. She researches the culture. She researches biblically, like how people, like the lineage-wise. And she really takes you on a journey as though you were actually there. She makes you feel like, okay, how would it have been to actually been in this person's position? What would be the environment? How would the people think? And so I really enjoyed it because it took my Bible reading to a new level. Instead of me having to go and look up all these different customs and all this stuff, I read it in a story and I was able to learn more from it. Now, I will be honest, I've only read Francine Rivers' Christian fiction books. I have not read other authors. I actually got some for Christmas and I'm looking forward to reading that. So I can't tell you if it's like that with all the different Christian fiction books, but I can tell you with these two because I've read both of these. Okay. First and foremost, I just want to lay that out. I feel that these books, though they may not necessarily take the place of your regular Bible study in quiet time, it definitely can enhance it. And I think that God can use these stories to help you with understanding these stories in the Bible, understanding how these Bible characters may have felt, and thus furthering your appreciation for the Word of God. So I'm going to quickly just go over each book and my thoughts, audience, who it's for, and all that. So we'll start off with the Lineage of Grace. I feel like the Lineage of Grace is probably more popular out of the two because most of the people who read Francine Rivers books are women, and Lineage of Grace deals with stories of the Bible of women. There's 5 women that she writes a novella. So this book contains 5 books in essence. This book is probably more popular than Sons of Encouragement, but that does not mean the Sons of Encouragement isn't a good book. But I will say that if you are wondering which to start with, this might be a good one to start with if you are a female. If you're a guy, go ahead and start with this one, I guess, I started with this one, and this is what led me to read the Sons of Encouragement because I enjoyed it that much. So there's 5 women that is included. So we have Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary. So each one of these women has their own book within here. And like I said, it goes into, she takes the story and she takes it to a whole nother level in terms of how would it have felt. Like with Tamar, okay? If you're not familiar with Tamar, Tamar is the one that she was originally married to but ended up dying, but she was childless. And, for women to be childless, that's not a good thing. And so it goes through her story with how she ends up having a child, what could have been going through her mind, because was not a good guy. He was not, right? And so it goes through, like, how would it have felt to be Tamar? What could she have feeling through this? The same with Rahab's story. Ruth, Bathsheba, Mary, all of these. It really goes through how they may have felt. I will say that this is not geared towards children. There are certain things in here that is not appropriate for young ladies. There's some sexual things, I would say. It's not rated R. I wouldn't say this is rated R, but you might want to use discretion for, super young readers, right? Even teenagers, some teenagers may be mature enough, some may not be. So it just kind of depends on their maturity level. So I will say that. But it's still really good. They're still really, really good. What else can I say about this? So that's the audience. I think that men can also get some things from this book, but I will say that I do think that it might be more, some of the stories might seem more like a woman might get a little bit more. Like the story of Ruth and Tamar in particular, I feel like there's like I feel like it's more geared towards women, but I can see like Mary, for instance, the story of Mary. I feel that anyone can benefit. I mean, anyone can benefit from any of these stories, but I think that Mary in particular is a story that can literally any audience, I feel, could benefit from it. So definitely recommend it. And I will say that within each story, there's also, I don't know if this is the same in the single copies, because you can buy each book separately. But in this book, there is some seek and find, like a Bible study at the end of each book that you can use for further exploration and growth in your walk with God as well. All right, this book is actually thicker. If we were to compare the two, okay, so this is thicker than the Lineage of Grace, Sons of Encouragement. So the Sons of Encouragement takes the view of, instead of using the main characters, like there's certain characters in the Bible that are like, we think of warriors in the Bible, like the main characters, we think of people like David and Daniel and Jesus and, all these different people. Well, she goes through people who aren't necessarily the main character. So we have Aaron, Caleb, Jonathan, Amos, and Silas. And I know for some of you, I said these names, you heard these names before, but you might be like, who is that? So let me just explain who these people are. So Aaron was Moses' brother. He was the one that became the first high priest when the Israelites left Egypt. So her story about Aaron is, it takes the concept of Aaron's perspective, what could have been going through Aaron's mind, as he is working with Moses and he is now becoming this priest, and, going through the wilderness and all of that. It's very interesting seeing it from his perspective because, it's true. He became the high priest. And he also, if you remember in the Bible, the story of the golden calf, she talks about that. How do you think that might have affected the way he felt and then acted afterwards? And then we have Caleb. So if you don't know who Caleb is, Caleb was one of the two. Caleb and Joshua had went and spied out the land of Canaan. And they were the only ones that had a good report and said, yes, we can do it. And as a result, Caleb was one of those that was able to go into the promised land. And so it's his story. And his story is actually very interesting. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to go over it. But I love this story because it had some things in here that I never thought about before, about who Caleb was. Like literally, it's biblically. but unless you're studying it in the Bible, you don't see it. And I just thought it was so cool. And it kind of, for me, it made me feel a little bit more special as a Christian. But anyways, definitely a great, great read. Then we have Jonathan. Jonathan is the the best friend of David. And so we know the story of David, but Jonathan was Saul's son, King Saul's son, and David's best friend. And so what was life for Jonathan, knowing that his best friend was going to eventually be the king instead of him being king? And what was it like to grow up and be under King Saul, especially after Saul ended up getting possessed with demons and wanted to kill David, so his story was very interesting. And then we have Amos. So Amos was a prophet, but he wasn't a typical prophet. He didn't go to any special school. He was a shepherd. And so there is, in the Bible, Amos is just a bunch of prophecies. Well, Francine takes those prophecies and transforms it to, like, what would it be like if Amos was going through life and then, now he has to be this prophet, which is very interesting. It is very interesting. I really enjoyed it. And again, it put in perspective what he may have been through, because again, he wasn't a typical prophet. And it was interesting to see how some of the prophets may have delivered their message back in the day. And then we have Silas. So Silas was a scribe. He was a scribe for Paul and a scribe for Peter. And so we don't really hear a whole lot about him in the New Testament. He is mentioned, but we know, like I said, he was a scribe. And so she takes the stance as though, okay, if he was a scribe, he was writing about certain things. He was with Paul. He was with Peter with certain things. What would it have been like if he was traveling with them? If he was writing this, if he witnessed certain things, what could be going through his mind? Would he have some issues with anything? So that's the perspective of Silas. This story, again, audience-wise, I think both men and women would love all these stories because it does deal with a lot of the common stories in the Bible. As far as age, so I will say that these stories, again, it may not be for a very young audience. It needs to be someone that's a little bit more mature, because there are some gruesome things, because, you're dealing with, for instance, with Jonathan and Caleb, there's wars, so there are some warlike things, but it's not too gruesome. Anyone who follows my channel knows that I can't stand gruesome things. One thing I love about Francine Rivers is that she doesn't go into details. Like, she'll just say stuff, and it's not to the point where your imagination goes to a very bad place, which I appreciate with her writing. She writes in such a way where it's doable. It's like, okay, I understand something bad happened, but it's not to the point where you're squeamish. But with that said, I don't think it's appropriate for everyone. But PG-13 for sure. Some of these stories are okay for PG, I guess, a younger audience. Let's see. With both of these stories, remember, so she takes from the Bible and she creates. So if you're someone that's very like, oh, it has to be exactly like what it says in the Bible, she is very, like, she does not change what the Bible says. She just turns it into like a story. So I don't think you have to be concerned about doctrinal issues. I haven't found any doctrinal problems with these. The only thing I would say, like, I could see, like, maybe, like, with Silas and Amos, because it wasn't, like, the actual story wasn't necessarily in there. Obviously, she had to use her imagination a little bit more. So you might make that argument like, oh, did that really happen? But that's with any of these fiction-like stories. It possibly could have happened this way, but it may not have. So really, I take the stance that this is just here to help you understand it a little bit better and help you with your walk with God. So that's my little synopsis on these two books. I really enjoy them. And this is from someone who hasn't read other Francine Rivers books. I've only read these. And I know most people, they've read Redeeming Love and, all these other books. And these, for some reason, seem to be not as popular. But I really enjoyed them. I'm going to go ahead and read some of her other books. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy them as much. But these are really good in terms of helping you on your Christian walk. Which I don't know if we could say that about all types of Christian fiction books. But these for sure, I would say, does that. All right. If you enjoyed this video, if it was helpful, and if you feel like, yes, I'm going to try out one or both of these books, let me know down below which of these books you are planning on reading or if you read any of them. And again, share any comments you have on other recommendations of books that you may think that I may enjoy and you may want to hear my feedback on. If you like, make sure you hit that thumbs up. It lets me know that you enjoy these videos. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on anything else that I have to share for you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and you guys have a blessed day. Bye.